Hello, my name is Eve. I like to talk about disturbing books and recommend them to you because that's all I read is disturbing books. But today, no recommendations necessarily. I just want to talk about the subgenres of horror, specifically the two subgenres that I read the most: extreme horror and splatterpunk. Now, when I first started playing around with this genre and dipping my toes into it, I did not know the difference between extreme horror and splatterpunk. And to be honest, when I started reviewing the content, I didn't know the difference between it because a lot of the people in the horror community were using the two terms interchangeably. And a lot of the people that I had contact with when I first started reviewing, they told me that it was the same. And a lot of the groups that I was in, they also told me extreme horror, splatterpunk, same thing. Did you guys know that it's not the same thing? And that also confused me because a lot of the books that I would buy, some of them would be like an extreme horror or a splatterpunk. And I just got really confused. But I've done my research and I've seen a few other people talk about it. Judith Sonnet is one of them, Wrath James White is the other. I've seen them talk about how we need to separate the two because we have a lot of new and upcoming horror authors, extreme horror and splatterpunk authors, who are just titling their books willy-nilly without actually knowing the meaning, the message, the definition between or of the two. If you look it up, I do have a podcast episode really diving deeper into this. I did it a while back when I was trying to figure out the difference between splatterpunk and extreme horror. So if you go to Morbidly Curious on Spotify, there should be an episode on there. If you want to check out my other episodes where I watch really extreme, disturbing movies and do reviews on them, that's also there too because I watch the disturbing movie Iceberg and I'm on tier 5 or 6 now. If you look up the definition between extreme horror and splatterpunk, you will get a clear cut definition on splatterpunk. You will not get a clear cut definition for extreme horror. So I will read you the definition of splatterpunk. It says makes a statement using shock value. It's a movement from the 80s. It's countercultural. It's a revolt against the trad horror, the traditional horror. Hence the punk in splatterpunk. And Judith Sonnet also pointed this out on Facebook as well. But sadly, if you look up the definition for extreme horror and you do some digging, there's no clear definition. In fact, they usually show splatterpunk as an example of extreme horror, which I don't know how that works. But Judith Sonnet, once again, I'm crediting her, she said that extreme horror is over the top, shocking, gore for gore's sake, violence for violence sake. As splatterpunk is trying to convey a message or make a point or be countercultural, extreme horror is just wanting to be extreme. The gross outs, the over the topness. There is no point of the story besides making you extremely uncomfortable and just going over the top, seeing how far they can push your buttons. With that comes a little discussion that I want to have because I see so many people venting about the books that they're reading, extreme horror books, and they will literally complain and be like, oh, I just read, No One Writes for Free, and it's nothing but violence, and the story doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand. It just felt like it was being violent to be violent, and I don't understand that. That is the point. That is the point. It is an extreme horror book. It's not trying to make a point. It's not trying to sway you one way or make you think a certain way or leave you sitting back there with philosophical thoughts on in your head being like, this book really made me think. No, it's not that book. And that's an extreme horror book. It's supposed to push your buttons. It's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to make you feel gross. This is a violence for violence sake, gore for gore's sake book. That's extreme. Like knowing the definitions of these two terms, these two subgenres of horror, I feel like would be an amazing thing for more people to know about, especially if you are reading these books frequently, for the simple fact of If you know an extreme horror book is over the top and you know that definition, then maybe you will stray away from extreme horror books if you don't like over the topness. If you want something that is countercultural, that is, gross for the sake of something, instead of just gross for the sake of being gross, then maybe read more splatterpunk. But what comes with that is the fact that I feel like a lot of these new horror authors do not know what they're labeling their books as, because I won't name them. I've read a few books that are titled as splatterpunk, but there was no point in that book. At least no point that I saw. It was just gross. Like, it was on par with No One Rides for Free. It was just gross. Listen, I love gross. But when I see something titled as splatterpunk, I always am looking for the deeper meaning in the book because there is supposed to be one. Let's go over some short examples of extreme horror versus splatterpunk. Again, I am crediting Judith's sonnet because I did see her post, and that is what triggered me to make this video, is because I've been seeing her posts about this topic for a while now, and I've been meaning to talk about this. So I'm taking some of her examples and I'm putting in some of my own examples, but Judith said that her book, No One Rides for Free, is an extreme horror book. I feel like we all know that. I feel like that's common sense, yes. And then she also put Bug Collector by Wrath James White, which I agree. Yes. Then I put in extreme horror The Slob, Full Brutal, and Talia. I feel like those are splatterpunk books. They are over the top. They are pushing the boundaries. They are gross. And I may be wrong with Talia. I may be wrong because I haven't read that book in a while, but for some reason Talia came to mind because I was trying to keep the same authors for both extreme horror and splatterpunk. And some examples of splatterpunk horror are Rabbit Hunt, Summer Never Ends. I put Playground. I did put Playground. I feel like that deals with a lot of unpacking family trauma. I feel like it has to do with a lot of just like family dynamics. Like, that book made me feel something, not just gross out. Old Lady by Kristopher Triana deals with a lot of PTSD, trauma. That book gives me goosebumps. And then I also put Left to You by Daniel J. Volpe because that book is just a piece of art, honestly. The fuck? I feel like knowing the difference between the two is so important because it is so important to know what you're looking for and to know what you want. Because if you pick up an extreme horror book and you're looking for the deeper meaning in it, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be frustrated with the book you just picked up and the author. And I feel like it's important for the authors to know the difference between the two because I feel like we've been using them interchangeably for the past 2 years. Like, ever since I started reviewing, everyone has been using splatterpunk and extreme horror interchangeably. And I think we should stop. If you liked this, please like, comment, subscribe. Comment me your favorite splatterpunk book and your favorite extreme horror book. And let me know if you need me to define anything else for you. Hopefully I did a good job on this. Hopefully I didn't butcher it. I made notes. But I hope everyone has a great night, and I will see you guys next time.